Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome to the final part of the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command commentary.
Alright, Lightyear. This is the big one. We finally got a lock on Zurg's home planet, and it's time to take out the trash.
Yeah, taking out the trash. But yeah, this is pretty much the final two levels of the game. I mean, it's technically a final level, then we have like a final stage, and then a final boss fight as its own level, Motron thing. Welcome to Planet Z.
This is Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. All evil entities will now surrender to me.
Not today, Buzzy boy!
But anyways, you can tell this is the final level of the game. It's a lot of red coloration, a lot of turrets everywhere. Yeah, but yeah, this is pretty much one of the more heavily infested stages of the game, but yeah, Planet Z is actually a fairly decent final level. It's foreboding, as fitting of an evil Emperor's lair. Oh, what have you? Yes, evilness. Oh. Yeah, but yeah, Zurg doesn't really tend to do much around this point. He's pretty much the same as any other boss. You would have thought he would have fired stuff at Buzz Lightyear, and again, you would have thought if now was ever the time to experiment with stages, like, I mean, never mind that Canis Lunis, whatever the fuck was going on at that stage, that maybe you would have had this be more of like a build-up to the final gauntlet. Like, you know, you go through Zurg's defenses, taking everything down so that you can make your way there. Like, I mean, screw the whole racing thing, just, you know, gradually take out all the enemies in your way and progress up to the final boss fight. I don't know, I feel like that would have been a more interesting way to have it, but instead, the way in which this level sets itself up, yeah, you pretty much chase Zurg to the end, you have a boss fight with him, as every other level tends to go. Then, for some reason, even though you technically defeat him, he somehow survives, and then you go to a final boss fight. And there isn't even a cutscene technically alerting you to this, it's pretty much just Commander Nebula going, somehow Zurg escaped, so now you gotta go in and finish the job. I really don't know what to say, but apart from anything else, this is technically the only other stage where I die in, so yeah, that's kind of a wee bit balls, but apart from that though, yeah, not much to really talk about in terms of stage dynamics. I mean, yeah, it's pretty dynamic. It does kind of do a similar thing to the second visit to Trey World, where, you know, you're going through a fair few locales. Like, I mean, we're going through some underground pipes, then we're jumping across this the cityscape of Planet Z. So again, we do get some pretty cool vistas, and thus, Buzz Lightyear is dead. Blurg, and just before the fucking health pack. Ugh. What are the odds? But anyway, as I said beforehand, again, you're going through a fair amount of Zurg's evil lair in his building, so, yeah. Decent level scope, it looks fairly industrialized, and, in terms of, like, its atmosphere, it's got that going for it, and, in terms of the level's overall design, again, it's fun to go through, it's just that, I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe something, you know, something that builds up towards the final boss fight with Zurg would have been a bit more appropriate here, but alas, it's just sort of, we ran out of ideas, and we wasted our time on Canis Lunis to do anything different, so, I don't know, maybe if they spent more time developing this as opposed to, you know, Canis Lunis with that werewolf thing, maybe things would have been different. Anyway, there's the teleporter, I try and get it, but no! Reuse Toy Story 2 clip, But anyway, here's where I get it good and proper. Editing. It saves lives. Well, time at the very least, which is needed to save lives. Teleporting. Teleport out. Whee! And yeah, that should save us a bit of time to get out of here. Unless, of course, I forgot about the bombs, which I believe I did. So, yeah, that's part of the reason why you don't take the teleporter unless you get to, unless you're doing the time trial, which I'm not really bothering to show off because we're pretty much at the end of the game. We don't really need any more levels unless, you know, you've really just sort of been doing the main story path. But even in that case, you would have been stopped as early as like the first Trade World level if you were just doing like the main story path and haven't been collecting LGMs and galactic credits as you go. So really, yeah, you would have had to have done this at some point. But I am also showing what happens both if the time runs out and in turn if you leave the bombs. With the bombs, you do technically get a cutscene of you know, the bombs exploding. Not that it causes any surrounding damage or that there's anything special that you get as a result of losing in a failure penalty state. It's really just pointless, really. So anyway, as it's flashing over there, again, you can't do anything. Zurg still remains invincible since he's at his getaway point, and really, why they aren't fighting right here and now, because Zerg's at his homeworld, so where exactly is he running to? I don't know, but you get teleported out after 15 seconds.
I got this one, Buzz. I softened him up for you, Buzz.
Thanks, Mira.
Always willing to lend a helping hand.
Fare thee well, Mira. Your check is in the mail for one final voice performance. Anyway, yeah, Zerg in this form is pathetically easy. I mean, he has his, like, little rapid-fire gun from Toy Story 2, but really, that's about it. Like, I mean, he occasionally ducks out of the way and lets his gun turrets give you a bit of pip damage, but really, like, I mean, Zerg just isn't really nothing. It's rapid-fire gun versus rapid-fire gun. And, I mean, say what you will about Zerg just being, like, some generic-as-hell evil robot emperor guy, but I mean, he can at least be vaguely threatening, as he kind of was during, like, that fake-out video game sequence in the beginning of Toy Story 2. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, this is pretty much a fake-out boss fight where Zerg was apparently destroyed, but then he wasn't, and here's an unrelated clip from some random episode of the show, which doesn't even seem to take place on the planet. They could have easily used clips in the pilot movie, I think, but they didn't, even though they could have, but fuck it, nothing happened, so whatever. 7 credits short, but we got all the Lugums. Ah, Lugums are safe. Ooh, Buzz, Nirvana will not be reached. In any case, one last save of the game, and then we will be ready to let the craving set in. Cutscene go now.
Well, that first attempt was real good. I give it a 7. We've got Zerg right where we want him. Now let's just finish the job.
I don't know, I guess the idea is that he retreats to his throne room, but even then we get there anyway, and whatever. It's obvious that there wasn't really a lot of forethought put into this game's story with its very threadbare connection of stop Zerg and his henchmen. Even though I'm pretty sure on the show a lot of these characters were completely separate from him to begin with, so really what's the point in anything? Whatever. Final level of the game / boss fight, let's go.
I see that you buzzed your little way into my lair.
It's time to end your reign of terror, Zerg.
I am much more powerful than you could ever imagine, Lightyear.
And in terms of final boss fights, this one is a bit of a disappointment. I mean, it is technically a multi-phase boss fight, but that's really not saying much considering the fact that the first phase is Zerg's little hover platform. Again, I wish I had a hover platform so I could intimidate my underlings into overthrowing my overlings, but yeah, the only way you're really going to be damaging Zerg's little hover platform thing is by taking out a set amount of enemies that he occasionally dips down, shoots at you for a bit, and you're basically just doing bits of pip damage, collecting credits, collecting weapons. You do pretty much have access to every weapon in the game around Zerg's throne room, so, you know, there is weapon variety here. But apart from that, this is also a very tedious boss fight, primarily because of the fact that if you had a lock-on for this stage, yeah, you could easily take out that platform and then Zerg himself, but instead the boss fight pads itself out rather significantly with the fact that you're pretty much constantly tanking pip damage from a bunch of different enemies, so you are technically facing all the tiny little henchmen throughout the entire game, really, so there's one thing, I suppose, but the only other problem with that is that the stage hazards and henchmen are more of a threat than Zerg himself, which is not something you want for your final boss of the game. And even in that case, Zerg also shares a similar problem to the Fixer in the sense that he constantly hovers out of your way when he's, you know, in his second phase of the boss fight, so really, it just turns this entire boss fight into a bit of a pisser, really. The fastest way to take him out, I'd recommend, is the missile launcher, since it does a rather hefty amount of damage. Don't get that bomb grenade launcher weapon, because otherwise, well, you'll pretty much suck and die. Yeah, these Zerg tanks will also take off a large chunk of your health, so, yeah, take out a large chunk of your health. You are thankfully saved by respawning medpacks, so, you know, there is that, but apart from that, this is a very much a fucking whiff of a final boss fight, and quite frankly, it ends the game on a very disappointing note. I mean, they could have easily done something unique to make Zerg a more credible final threat, but I mean, when the most threatening thing is hover chair, I don't know, you don't really have anything in. Oh my god, clones are the first boss of the game! Actually, you know what would have been a slightly better boss fight? Like, maybe a rival thing with Warp Dark Matter coming back? I don't know, XL, maybe, like, having a little boss rush mode if you really needed to pad things out? I mean, again, it still would have been equally as much of an attrition rush as anything else in the game, but At least it would have been slightly more exciting than this, and you would have already had, you know, the enemy programming and the fucking weakness chain weapons in the facility that you could have easily taken them out and gotten some galactic credits to get those weapons, so... Honestly, it's, there are plenty of ways you could have done this final boss a little bit better, but by that same token, it does also take a lot of the game's flaws and exemplifies them by the fact that you can't really do much with just basic run around and shoot mechanics without adding more mechanical depth. And again, I'll mention this all throughout the commentary, adding a lock-on feature. You know, having more of a rock, paper, scissors aspect akin to the Mega Man series in terms of how you take out the bosses. Not necessarily counting shields, because that doesn't really do anything. I'm talking specifically about, you know, maybe certain weapons take out aspects of the boss so they can't use specific attacks. Maybe certain bosses have unique properties, or something like that. Again, like, I mean, think the physical melee attacks of, you know, the cyborg werewolf guy, compared to anyone else. Like, you could have had many different ways of enemies attacking you, but sadly, that's all pretty much either just they chase after you, or they run around you and shoot bombs or do a thing, and that's just... Again, it's got the mechanical depth of a length of string, and you just... It just shows a lot of weakness in the design, and what's meant to be, you know, the ultimate epic crescendo of Buzzard Lightyear of Space Ranger Land Motron. I don't know, it just ends the game on a bit of a wet fart, as it would. A tepid pop of the anus. Yes, rather technical game jargon terminology. And something you also might be noticing, at least for the first phase. No music, or at least music that only intercuts, like, once or twice. Now, this isn't technically exclusive to the PlayStation 1 version, because I do remember in the PC version, there wasn't actually any music at all, which always baffled me when I was younger. I was wondering, like, hang on, isn't that meant to be final boss music? What's going on? But, yeah, I don't know if this was something to do with maybe the sound programmers, or something iffy going on with in terms of, like, the technology or whatever, but... Yeah, it's quite odd that we don't really have, like, a lot of final boss music that only just sort of cuts in, then cuts out. I don't know, it's very... I mean, it makes an already shonky final boss fight even more bloody shonky, and that's, taking points off for that Traveler's Tales. Well, you had to rush this one out the door, or, you were getting a bit lazy towards the end of the development cycle. I mean, you do get, the generic final boss... Well, not final boss. You do pretty much get the box standard boss music, you know, as you go on throughout the fights. You know, by the time you get to Zerg's, second phase, but... you know, it's pretty much the same boss fight music that you've heard throughout the game, and if you've been paying attention, it's also the same sort of boss music that you've been hearing, actually on the main menu screen, so really it doesn't come across as, you know, something unique or something that you've never heard before. It's just the same thing you've heard before, but now again. Ooh. And that also actually extends to the credits, which I'm not going to talk about the credits so far, because that's pretty much Final Thoughts territory, but in terms of the credits themselves, yeah, the credits also have no music, and they also... They try to do like a sort of a Donkey Kong Country kind of thing, kind of like what Banjo-Kazooie and a lot of Rare games tended to do, where they had like an enemy roll call, where they have the enemy walk on screen, they have it like, you know, the Crushers, or, you know, Buzz Bombers, or whatever the fuck they're called, or the Singers, or whatever, you know, do a little funny animation and, you know, add a little bit of charm to the game as the enemies, you know, sort of say, yeah, I was in this game and I'm cool. This game tries to do it too, but it's pretty much just all the enemies walking around in a circle, and it's just done in complete silence. Which is kind of... It's kind of showing a real lack of effort, to be perfectly honest, and something that would have been charming, but either they couldn't afford the voice actors, or a lot of the voice lines that they did have were siphoned from the show, which, given the fact that, you know, the show also had voice talents of, you know, some rather high-profile, debatable, but at least some high-quality actors like Craig Ferguson as Nosferatu. You know, you also had bloody Brad Garrett as Torque and whatever. You know, even Bobcat Goldthwait, who probably isn't the most recognizable name, but I mean, is still a Hollywood actor. So, you know, I guess they either couldn't afford them, or they ran out of lines for them to have a bit of a unique send-off. But anyway, this is pretty much the final boss fight, and it's really telling that the most damaging thing in this entire fight is basically the little lightning things that are pretty much going around and pip you, so... Yeah, Zerg himself isn't really a threat, but rather just poncy lasers and lightning beams. But again, I pretty much said my piece. Again, if you had a lock-on, this could have been done a bit faster, but no. Prolong the boredom, Traveler's Tales, and use game design that's 2 years out of date. Sure, why not? Come on, Zerg, your death is inevitable. To infinitum, and Ouroboros, or R-Rob or Ross. Look at the way it's spelled. He must have been thicker than a ticket Todd's wad. And nobody's gonna get what I'm referencing. Well, I mean, some people might. I mean, I did actually make a very similar reference in part 3 of Kingdom Hearts. Actually, no, it was part 2 of Kingdom Hearts. And somebody got it. And for those of you who do get that reference, you're cool. You're in Skully's cool corner for cool people. But anyway, it's... Oh god, we still got a half a dozen fucking minutes to go. I mean, not counting credits, obviously, but... I really don't have much of a strategy for Zerg at this stage. I mean, using auto-tracking weapons like the lightning gun is pretty much my best bet here. By the way, this is the bomb gun. It is useless. I mean, again, if you can get them on the ground, I suggest using the submachine gun laser weapon, but... Again, you need auto-tracking weapons, and you wouldn't even really need to necessitate auto-tracking weapons if you had a functional lock-on button, which was standard at this point. Again, famous games such as Ocarina of Time and Mega Man Legends had it, so you would have thought someone at Traveler's Tales either didn't play those games, or they would have thought, golly gee, actually no, I tell a lie, they even had the fucking homing attack from Sonic 3D Blast for the sake of locking onto enemies who were otherwise out of your grasp, in a 3D space. So they obviously had an idea, but they just thought, when does the game need to be released? Yesterday. Well, pucker me portside, my Britishy chums. John Burton, you did direct this game, as I checked in the credits, and, I'm gonna be shaking an arg fist at you, even though you probably don't know who I am, and it'll probably kill me when you find out that I've been speaking ill of your Traveler's Tales and your game design. As well as wondering about the fact why you never made a game based on your mascot. Even though I seem to recall Haven Call of King was initially gonna star the Traveler's Tales mascot before they made it like some generic-ass human boy, I think. Whatever. The point is, you're making bank with lots of LEGO games, and I'm not making bank by talking over games from my childhood. So there we are. Some people get success, and other people don't success. Like me. A blue, 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 a blue, 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 blue. But on the plus side, I can at least make fun of, shonky boss design. And in the end of the day, that's all I take solace in. For heaven's sake. By the way, I don't know if you heard that, but Zerg's battle cry, again, it isn't, you know, some, like, painful scream or him going arg, it's instead him going, hey! You know, like, as if all of our missile launchers and laser blasts are just mild annoyances to him. Yeah, well, I guess it makes about as much sense. Shonky boss fight and shonky attacks. Kaboom. You exploded, evil Emperor Zoig. Well, that's the end of that then. And actually, you know, you're showing a clip of those two in giant robots. Why couldn't we have had a giant robot fight? And don't tell me that it wasn't possible back then. You know, there was Gexzilla vs. Mechares and Gex 3D Enter the Gecko. You know, a game that came out in 1998, 2 years before this, so yeah, you could have easily done that, but you did not. Oh, that development time that went into the Canis Lunus level could have easily gone towards this, and by the way, completely out of context cutscene, we never find out what happens to Buzz Lightyear after this. It's entirely possible that he gave his life to save Star Command and bravely died. You go, you brave man, you. And, yeah, I'm also replacing the credits music, mainly because there is no credits music for the original game. Although I tell a lie, there technically is in the PlayStation version, although it only cuts in towards the end, and there isn't really much context to it regardless, so in the meantime, yeah, I'm pretty much giving you end credits music, which is what I've been using at the end of the videos, which is, the soundtrack challenge from Final Fantasy X, so, yeah, it might sound a little bit too hardcore for Buzz Lightyear, but, you know what, I figure I might as well spice things up a little bit. Anyway, this is pretty much the enemy roll call. You have Hornet, you have Green Dude, you have Zerg, Marl, I think his name is, Skrill. You also have the werewolf that's fucking running laps around everybody. You have What's-His-Face, Tank, Gravitina, Dinosaur, that's really more of a wild animal. That wasn't working for Zerg, and unless it's sentient. Giant Robo-Dude, then you have Torque, then you have the werewolf again, XL, and that's pretty much all she wrote. Anyway, that was Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, a game from my childhood that... You know what, I might have complained a fair bit about some of the deficiencies that this game has, but make no mistake, I do think this game can be quite fun at its base level. It's just that it's very sloppy in a lot of areas, and the fact that there's a lack of a lock-on is really my biggest bugbear. You know, along with a few other slight nitpicks here and there, like no real build-up to a final boss. Not a more interesting final boss, even if it was going to be a gimmicky giant robot fight. And really, I mean, it has been re-released on modern storefronts, so again, you can get it fairly cheaply if you so desire, but... You know, it's not the most exciting game around, but... You know what, it does have its charm. It's a fairly good-looking game, the soundtrack, for when it does show up, is actually pretty damn good. And, again, I mean, besides the faces of the Fixer and Mirror, graphically it looks pretty snazzy, and... Yeah. There is enjoyment to be had, but it's also a very sloppily made game, as... Traveler's Tales did somewhat have the reputation of making at times. But on the whole, a fun little revisit to my childhood, if a slightly frustrating one, in some areas. So, supposed to talk about future commentaries at this point. Birth by Sleep should already be over at this stage, because I'm still posting that at time of recording. Once this is posted, look forward to The Simpsons Hidden Run, a game that I promised all the way back in 2020 after Silent Hill Shattered Memories that I did end up getting around to, but when I get to The Simpsons Hidden Run in this, you know, future commentary, you'll soon start to see why I axed the 2020 version and I'm pretty much starting this version anew. But anyway, that's also what's coming next, and it just occurred to me that The Simpsons is also owned by Disney, so yeah, Kingdom Hearts, then Buzz Lightyear, and now The Simpsons. Dear God, there is no escaping the Disney. And, yeah, I don't know if this voice talent was done specifically for the game or the show. I know at the very least, like, the main cast members over there were done for it, but I don't know if any of the villains were. It's possible they may have been, but heck, I'm not really too sure at this stage. Oh, so he was voiced by Jeff Bennett, not Craig Ferguson. Well, he must have been voiced by Craig Ferguson in that show, in the bloody show then. Huh, whatever. Anyway, on that note, I am Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this commentary, and, well, catch you dudes and dudettes next time for more reviews, commentaries, and fun-filled Skully antics to entertain your day. Keep it new metal, and, John Burton, you have a lot to answer for with this game. Catch you later.